I'm back here with Tina Meier, founder of the Megan Meier Foundation. Also with me, Jessica Brookshire, a grad student and beauty queen. But not so long ago, Jessica, too, was the victim of very painful bullying. Jessica, looking at you now, I can imagine somebody would pick on you, but you were the object of some people's hatred and bullying. When did it start?
It started in 4th and 5th grade, just basic grade school teasing. And then in middle school, it became malicious, and it was unstoppable. I was living a real-life Mean Girls. It
was like the movie come to your own personal life.
It was less funny.
These were like your fellow students. You knew them. They knew you.
Yes.
Why were they so hateful toward you?
It was anything and everything I did and everything I didn't do. If I wore the right clothes, they weren't the right color. They didn't fit right. I was shorter. I was skinnier. I had freckles and a gap between my teeth. And my hair was never styled like everyone else's. And it was just anything they could find to pick me apart.
What was going on inside of you when the kids were doing this to you?
It was a fear of not being like everyone else. All I wanted was to fit in. So badly I wanted to fit in, and I tried everything I could. I kept putting myself out there and thinking if they would just get to know me, they would see that I'm not a nerd, I'm cool, and it never worked. It just put me out there for more bullying.
But you were struggling all the time to fit in, to be accepted, and to be okay, and not to be singled out.
Right.
Did you ever think about doing something like Megan and hurting yourself, or was that ever an option for you?
There were times. There were times when I was so low, I would go to bed at night and pray and just think, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I don't have to do this. If I don't wake up tomorrow, I don't have to do this. And I thankfully have such a large and strong and loving family that I made it through. But it was when I heard Megan's story that I realized I'm lucky to have made it out.
And Megan's story did inspire you. I wanted you to tell me, what was it that was the switch inside of you, Jessica, that caused you to say, I'm going to do something other than just sit there and take?
Well, I blocked it out. I moved away from home, went to another school in another state when I moved off to college, and I just blocked it out. I moved on, and one day I heard the news of Megan's story, and I think before that I hadn't given myself credit for the gravity of what I had gone through. I didn't realize how serious it was. I just kept it all to myself. And it was when I heard Megan's story that I realized that could have been me. Why did I make it out? And it hit me, but I didn't really take a jump to action then. It wasn't until I was working in a 5th grade classroom and a little girl raised her hand and said, what's some advice you have to be successful? And I told her, just be nice. What goes around comes around, because that's what my parents have always taught me. And she said, well, what if they're not nice to you? And I said, kill them with kindness. That's what my mom told me, kill them with kindness. And she said, well, if I was as pretty as you, they wouldn't make fun of me. And I had to excuse myself from the room crying because nobody had ever called me pretty. I mean, my dad calls me pretty, but it just never in that context, and that's not something I ever want to be called either, especially not after what I went through and not from somebody like her. And I found out later she was being bullied, and it was then that I realized that I was selfish to think that just because I graduated, it wasn't still happening.
It was still happening. But then you ended up getting into pageants. You were participating in the Miss Alabama pageant. I mean, that's a long way from being picked on and bullying. So tell me about that transition and the pathway to get there.
Well, I've always wanted to go to law school, and somebody told me I had a great interview and I should do pageants, and I looked at them and I'm thinking, I've been called ugly my whole life. You're crazy if you think I'm doing a beauty pageant. I entered one, and it was just a snowball effect. I got into it. I loved it, and the community service aspect was addicting, and now this platform, it's just not something I can leave behind.
And you've started an organization to help kids who are being bullied.
I have.
Tell me about it.
It's called Karma. It stands for Kids Against Ridicule, Meanness, and Aggression, and ironically it is karma because my parents always taught me what goes around comes around. It started basically on the premise of just be nice. That's all I wanted to teach children, was to be nice to each other. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing, and eventually it's become an all-out campaign. It's a war against bullying.
Now, you've met some kids, and some of them have told you some pretty remarkable stories when you talk about how you were bullied.
Yes. I've had children reach out to me that are going through things you can't fathom, and they've never told anyone. I've had a girl come to me, and she was 11 years old, and she pulled up her sleeve, and she had cuts all down both arms. And when
she had cut herself.
Yes, and when I asked her what her parents had said as a reaction to it, or what her counselor said, she said, well, I haven't told anybody, but I just thought you would understand. So I've had a lot of children who feel like I'm not a teacher, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a parent, I'm not an adult. I'm kind of right there at that in-between, comfortable enough to talk to me.
This is such a powerful story. I'm amazed. I mean, you know, I'm glad my kids are grown, to be honest with you, because I think I worried about them getting their knees skinned on bicycles, and the thought that, particularly with cyberbullying, there is a serious bunch of hurt going on to a lot of kids out there in America. And I hope that through the efforts of Tina and Jessica and many like them, that we can turn hearts and minds and get people aware, particularly moms and dads.